Hey everyone. With the cold weather very quickly approaching, I just wanted to take a quick second to talk about the question that we get all the time, both online and in the shop. And that is, what is a knife that will work well with gloves? Say, like you're out in the snow and you've got some of these big, oversized, bulky gloves. Like you can see, this is quite oversized for my hand. There is quite a bit of extra room. And I'm going to be using some of these as an example to show you how well or unwell certain knives can work with gloves. So I'm going to start off really strong with kind of my number one recommendation, and that's going to be anything with a backlock and with that hole or oval cutout that Spyderco is very famous for. So this specific one here is a Pacific Salt 2. If you're going to be out in the snow, something that's high vis and extremely corrosion resistant, I think is a great idea. But of course, I got to show you how it works. You just jam your thumb into that hole and you roll it open. That's the great thing is with gloves, you don't really need fine motor control. You just jam and roll open. And then with the backlock, you just push down on this backlock and that'll disengage. But again, if you don't have that fine motor control, even for thumb opening, super easy to just pinch open. And that's why the backlock is so important, is it's one of the strongest locks out there, least likely to fail. And this is great because it's ambidextrous, so it doesn't matter if you're a righty or a lefty. And also super easy to use with a gloved hand. Spyderco has hundreds of options, with different blade shapes, handle materials, serrations, non-serrations, that will all function extremely similar to this one, but might fit your taste a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and link their brand page both up there and in the description if you want to go and check them out. Because like I said, this is just the first one we're talking about, but it really is kind of my number one recommendation. So anything in this realm, I think is an excellent choice. Next up, we have a Microtech. This is one of my favorite knives of all time. It's their MSI. And so it has that similar cutout. So again, you can just roll open with your thumb or two-handed open. But this is using their ram lock, which functions very similar to like an axis lock or crossbar lock. The great benefit of this is, again, it's ambidextrous, just like that backlock is. But I will say this one does maybe need a little bit more fine motor control to pinch and pull down. And then I would recommend using two hands with gloves on. It's not necessarily the easiest, and you might drop it on your gloves like that if you are doing it one-handed, but it is still totally doable. Like I said, I've got dang near an inch overlap here, and I'm still able to do it. Now that brings us to an automatic axis lock. This one's from Benchmade. This is their auto triage. This is generally my number one pick and go-to for like emergency, EMS, military, anybody that would have like gloves on typically. And so I think a lot of that applies here still. So with that auto axis lock, it disengages the same way as that. All you do is pull down and it pops right open. So you don't really need to feel around. You just put your fingers right there and just pull down, and the glove will most likely catch it. It does have a safety feature on the back, but I will say, in these gloves, I am completely incapable of engaging or disengaging. I'll push down on it. I can't really feel it. And then there's that inner liner of my glove that's sliding while the outside is just staying in the exact same spot. So I might not recommend engaging your safety if you do pick something like this. That might get in the way. Now, I want to talk about a couple of honorable mentions or things that I see people talk about online a lot. So a very popular one will be a button lock and a flipper. And I love button locks and flippers. And I will say, I can use this extremely well. Like, debatably, I would say this is the best one for me personally. Super easy to function with. But if you're in like a high adrenaline situation, you might not have as much feeling if there's cold out. You might not be able to find or function that flipper properly, but you can still pinch open totally fine. Now, the downside that I will say of a button lock here is that if I'm wearing these oversized gloves and I'm just hammer holding this one, I immediately just disengage that button on accident by this glove just kind of pushing into it. So I personally wouldn't really recommend a button. That's not to say that will definitely happen. You might have zero problems with it. And like I showed you just now, I can use this extremely well. But in an emergency situation, I can't say that would be the case. Other honorable mentions are something like an out the front. Incredibly easy to use. I have zero problem with this. Even through the glove, I can find that switch super easy and function. But if like snow and debris gets in here, it might not fire or it might get jammed. Same thing with a button lock auto. Some of them I don't think you'd have a problem with. This is an example where the button is kind of recessed into the handle, which a lot of people like because it's less likely to accidentally deploy. But the downside of that is I cannot feel this button at all through these gloves. I'm not exaggerating. I cannot feel it one bit. Okay, I can hear it. Okay, I did get it there, but I cannot feel that. So simply because it can be very difficult to find the button, and in some cases almost impossible to even engage with some gloves, I can't really recommend a button auto, especially because unless you find it, you can't even two-hand it open. You can't pinch open because it locks closed. So again, it all kind of comes back to my number one recommendation is like the simpler the better. So super easy, two-handed open, roll open by just jamming your thumb, and then a super simple back lock. Incredibly strong, but also super easy to use. I don't think you can go wrong with it. If you have any personal recommendations, like I said, people ask all the time, so I know they'd find your input valuable. If you want to read up on any of the knives you've seen in this video or pick one up for yourself, there are links in the description box below. They'll take you on over to gpknives.com. Thank you so much for watching, and stay sharp.